Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today's review is going to be a slight departure from normal because I'm going to take a look at two different books. However Many Must Die, Book 1 of The Blood Scouts by Phil Williams, and No Safe Haven, Book 2 of Melatu by James Lloyd Dulin. So it might seem a little bit strange for me to be doing two reviews. Why would I do such a thing? Why would I have such a departure from my normal format? Well, these are books that I guess I've not really read in the normal way either, so it kind of stands to reason, I suppose. No Safe Haven is a sequel, and I don't generally tend to do reviews or dedicated reviews for sequels because they give too much away, so I won't say too much about that one when it gets to the plot. But the reason that I'm combining these two, that I'm doing reviews for the two of them together, is because I proofread these. I'm a proofreader by trade. It's what I do as my full-time job. So I've not read these books for pleasure, but I've still definitely enjoyed them both, and I wanted to talk to you guys and to recommend these books to you. So in my role as a proofreader, I am very blessed to receive books from publishers or from authors before they are published. I won't go through all the details of what a proofreader does or anything like that. That's not what we're here for today. But I donated a free proofread to the Indie Fantasy Fund run by Zach Argyle and his wife Bookborn to proofread a book that they selected from the applicants to the fund, and they sent Phil Williams my way with However Many Must Die. So I'm going to hit that one first. This one I was very pleased to have received as a proofread because just looking at the cover, if you know me, if you've seen enough of my videos, you know that this is probably not the sort of book that I would have picked up, and that's exactly the same way I feel about it. I definitely would not have read However Many Must Die if I wasn't proofreading it, and I would have missed out because I really enjoyed it. So I don't normally like guns in my fantasy books. There are a few instances where it can be done right or that I don't really mind it. Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky is a good example. We have the introduction, the invention of the air battery and the snap bow, and then they're not really a massive part of the story, although they are there. You also have things like Sea of Souls by N.C. Scrimgeour, The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell, where guns exist in these worlds. They are seen, they are used, but very minimally, and they're not an important part of the story. As you can see from the cover here, the suggestion is that guns are probably going to be a big part of this story, and they definitely were. So you've got the character Wild Wish on the front. She is one of the Blood Scouts, this titular kind of squadron, of all-female squadron of soldiers in a war. It is kind of a World War II kind of feeling, I would suggest, based on the outfitting and the age of the rifle that she's holding on this cover. It is a fantasy world though, so there are some very big differences. As a brief overview of what we've got here, as I say, we've got an all-female squad of soldiers. They are going deep behind enemy lines to try to uncover a mystery, essentially, something that could have a massive impact on this war which has been raging for a couple of years. So they are on the, I can't remember actually if it's the Eastern Front or the Western Front or theatre as they are currently known, so that again ties in with the kind of World War II terminology. And it is mostly women who you have in this story because this squad is an all-female squad. There is a male captain who is with them, who is kind of their guide. He's the one who has uncovered this mystery. He knows where to go and he's leading them there. And then you do also have a point of view from the other side, the opposing faction in this war. You've got a mage called Marringdale, and she's got a couple of men who are with her as well. So it is mostly women, but there are some men as characters in this story as well. Now there are two things that I really loved about this book: the world building and the characters. I think maybe the characters is easiest, so I'm going to start there. I was really easily invested, or really quickly invested, into a lot of these characters. I don't know what it was, but I just really enjoyed them. I thought they all had proper character, so to speak, and I really enjoyed reading about them. If you've seen what I've said about the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, it probably ties into that. I love the banter that we have with the Northmen there, and with this squad of soldiers you get that here as well, and it really works well. So we've got a bunch of different characters. Our main character for the Blood Scouts is Wild Wish. She is a sniper. You've then got the command structure, the grunts, and the heavy gunners. So you've got plenty of different characters, plenty of different types of soldiers, and I love seeing them as they go through this really horrible kind of battle scene, this war zone. And you get periods of downtime, you get periods of travel as well where they're not fighting, but it's a really gritty, a really dark kind of world. The cover does, if you excuse the soldier on there with the rifle, the cover does potentially suggest a bit of a grim, dark setting, and I'd say that's probably right. There is a lot of gritty darkness here. There's a lot of kind of hopeless scenarios that you get as well. And for me, that's one of the key things about grimdark, so I think it is probably a pretty good description of this book. The world itself is definitely a fantasy world. Although you've got guns, you've got heavy artillery, you've got some tanks, I think there were, various petrol-powered vehicles, and you've got these great, big, properly massive train as well. It is definitely still a fantasy world. You've got various different creatures, some of them sentient, some of them not. You've got flying beasts which are used as transport, and it's just a really inventive world that works very well when it's all put together. I like seeing the different mannerisms that people have towards these things, the different feelings that people have towards different species. I thought that was very well done on both sides as well, both the what we see as the good and the bad side of the war. So I think it's really put together very well. And the other thing that we've got is magic. So there are a couple of different types of magic. There's a rare one that you hear about, you see a tiny bit about, so I won't really discuss that. But the two main ones that you have are witch-lacing and earth minding. One of them is to do with the living, essentially, so manipulating people, creatures, thoughts and minds. And the other one is to do with the earth and the environment, so being able to manipulate the trees and the ground and things like that. And we see both of those to really good effect. The Blood Scouts have an earth minder or dirt minder. There's a couple of different sayings which I quite like as well, a couple of different ways of referring to them, which just comes across really natural to me. But they have one in their crew, and she also shows some of the kind of consequences of using magic, which I quite like. I thought that was quite well detailed with her. But she shows the raw power that these can have, and sometimes it can be uncontrollable, which again is quite, as far as magic can go, quite realistic, I think. But I really loved seeing those bits and seeing what she was going to do and how it would affect what they were trying to do. Essentially, it wasn't always going to have a positive thing. It wasn't always going to do exactly what she wanted to do. So that was definitely something I appreciated. On the other side of the war, the main character, Marringdale, is an intention mage. She can sense, not thoughts as such, but she can sense intention. So she works for the Purification, which is kind of a secret police, and she'll join in. Her superior officer will do interrogations, and she's able to tell whether the person is telling the truth or not based on the way that they feel. So there's obviously, she senses the intentions, she senses their feelings, and her experience allows her to parse that basically and to understand what they mean by how they're feeling despite what they might be saying. So there's again a few different degrees of this, and there's a lot of times that it's really well portrayed to different uses. It's not just a case of being useful in an interrogation. So again, that's something that I quite liked. And it just shows that there's such an imagination, there's such a wide world here with so many different things going on. But at the heart of it, you've got these people, and as I say, I really felt for the characters. I thought they were so well done. I really liked them. It's a book, and Phil Williams is an author who's not afraid to kill off characters. This is a really horrible war zone, so there is definitely going to be death around, and sometimes you might have characters who you've become attached to. They might not make it home. So it's all very well done in that respect. I didn't feel that anything was done for shock value. It just all felt very natural, and overall it was a great read that I really recommend people checking out. As I say, guns in fantasy aren't really my thing, but I think it just worked as a story very, very well, and I love what I had here, and I'd love to see more of it in the future. So I'm not going to go through my normal weighted ratings with this kind of very informal review style, but I will say that However Many Must Die, I did plug it into my weighted ratings, and it came out with 85%, which is an absolutely fantastic score. So then going on to James Lloyd Dulin's second book in Malatu, this is No Safe Haven, which is the sequel to No Heart for a Thief. Now, this one's going to be slightly abbreviated. I'm not going to say quite as much about it because, as I say, it is a second book in the series and I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't read the first book. But what I will say is it definitely follows on from the first book, both in terms of the story, obviously, but also in the feel of the book. So what we get at the end of book one, we carry on, we start book two kind of a couple of days, I think it might be, after that. So there's a direct continuance of the story there. In book one, we were split between two storylines, or two time frames, if you like. We've got what's essentially the present day, and then we've got Kalo's past as he's telling his story to his young charge Tayan. And we continue with that in book three, but we also have another point of view, the female character Nyx, who they meet and kind of pick up at the end of book one. So I like that we have this additional character. I like her as a character and I like what she brings to the overall storyline. It also gives us an extension of the world. We're able to see a lot more of it through that extra set of eyes. So I think that was done very well. I did say in my review of No Heart for a Thief that I was very excited based on the ending of the book, where we were going to go in the second book, because I thought it really opened up the possibilities there, and I was pleased to see that it wasn't a letdown. Basically, I really enjoyed the story that we got here, having to be very vague to avoid spoilers, but I like how we get to see some proper training for Tayan. It's not just a case of Kalo training her, but she has a couple of different methods of training, trained in a couple of different things rather than just the what is the magic of this world. We've got Kalo as a very conflicted person, I think, in here because of what he is confronted with, essentially building on the what happened at the end of the book. And then we've got the different kind of environment essentially that Nyx finds herself in, again as a result of what happened at the end of the first book. So I really like how it all pulled together and how we got to see a lot more of the world and of the overall story. Obviously the earlier chapters in Kalo's life are really expanded on as he continues his story, but we're able to see the impact of this a lot more because of who's around us now, again following on from the end of the first book. So I know I say that quite a bit, but yeah, as I mentioned, it is very difficult to do a review or certainly to mention any of the plot elements without potentially spoiling the first book. Because it is a continuation though, we've got an improvement, I guess, in the author's writing style as he's finding his feet following on from his debut. He's got that added experience under his belt, and I think that really shows the quality of the storytelling was definitely a level up on what we got in the first book. There were a few things that I wasn't quite as keen on in the first book, but here I really liked everything that I got. I just think it's a really interesting story that we had initially, and to see everything within that expanded on, we get to see obviously some of the reasoning for what happened in that first book. Everything starts to fall into place a little bit, and I like that we have that kind of look at the past and how the events of the past shaped Kalo and started to make him the person that we saw in the first book, which might have been a little bit confusing without that backstory to him, but I still do appreciate the way that it's kind of spread out over the two books and presumably beyond that as well, because it really helps you to get to know the character as he is, and then piece by piece understand how he became that way. So I thought that was very well done here, and I like how you get almost a mirror image of that with Tayan's character development in the present day as well, and you can see the kind of the conflict and the reasons for the conflict as Kalo is training her, as he's imparting his knowledge and trying to avoid certain things and trying to push her down a certain path rather than letting her make her own mistakes, so to speak. So I really appreciate the way that was done, and it made for a really good story. I did enjoy No Heart for a Thief, but I would say that No Safe Haven is a definite step up in terms of the quality of the storytelling, but also the quality of the story itself. So this one was another really great book for me. It ended up at 83% on my weighted rating, so that one is in equal 38th, and then However Many Must Die at 85%, just above it, came in at equal 23rd in my Hall of Fame. So 2 5-star reads, 2 definite recommendations, very, very different, both dealing with war, but very different types of war due to the setting that they have and the differences there. But I highly recommend both of these. They're coming out soon. We've got However Many Must Die on the 10th of October, and then No Safe Haven is the 24th of October, I believe it is. So definitely check these out. If you've read No Heart for a Thief, it's a no-brainer to move on to No Safe Haven. And if you like a bit more grit in your fantasy and you don't mind guns and machinery and so forth, definitely check out However Many Must Die. Both of these books are really good. I really enjoyed them. They scored 5 stars, and they're both in the running to feature in my top 10 of the year when I get to it in a couple of months' time. I'm going to leave you there for today anyway. I'm not sure if I'm going to do any more of these more informal kind of combined reviews, and I'm certainly not going to review everything that I do proofreading for, but let me know in the comments down below, what are you looking forward to with these books? Were you going to pick them up anyway? Are you going to pick them up now even if you weren't before? I'd love to know. I'll catch you in the next video sometime soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.